Hey everyone, Paulus here. So today we're going to talk about business leadership and what most people get wrong. So it's tough running your own business. Everyone looks to you for guidance and support, and you feel like you have to project a veneer of confidence and certainty at all times. After all, that's what it means to be a leader, right? So you always have the answers, you always have certainty. Well, in this video, I want to share my insights gained over 15 years, starting and scaling companies into exactly what leadership is and how many people get it wrong. So let's take a look. So I want to talk about the 3 essential qualities of a great leader. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about is as leadership, as entrepreneurs, like our responsibility and our duty, how we need to serve the employees we work with, the strategic partners we work with, the customers we work with. So to do that, first, I want us to understand how we're different as leaders, as entrepreneurs. You might have heard we are unicorns. Well, the more I have employees, the more I get into the business world, the more I realize we truly are unicorns. There was an article I read once where it said about 1 to 3% of the population is able to go kind of strategic and tactical. So as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we can go very broad, can be very big visionaries, but we can a lot of times go pretty deep in what we do. And so I know that's kind of a superpower that I have is I can see all the different patterns and all the things that come together, and I can kind of rapid fire things pretty quickly, and I can, just kind of start pulling pieces together into, again, patterns. But the thing is that 99% of people are not like us. As Russell Brunson says, we really are the 1% crazy. So I don't want you to just think that that's a saying. Having hired hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 15 years, probably maybe thousands actually, I can tell you that we are unique. And that doesn't mean that everybody else is bad, because the world would be pretty crazy if everybody was like us. There'd be a whole lot of visionaries and not a whole lot of work getting done. So the question is as leaders, we have to understand how the layers, we don't a lot of times this day and age like to talk about the hierarchies of business. We want to be very, very flat. But in the actual sense of things, it's actually pretty difficult to make it really flat because everybody has different needs and different things that they want to do. There's some people that are check the box people, and they love that. They love the satisfaction of being able to check a box. There's some people that love to work with ambiguity. You go and put them into a new initiative or a new project and say, hey, go and explore this. Like some people love to work with ambiguity. There's people that love to go and close loops, go and create processes and systems and say, okay, the visionary opened up this loop. Here's the thing that I need to do. I'm going to go and close all those loops and put everything nicely tidied and into a bow, right? And so I don't want you to lose the hierarchy of things. It's not that one is better than the other, but there's kind of different ecosystems or universes that people like to live in. It took me a long time to figure this out. So in the early stages of my business, I actually hired a lot of people like me. We had lots of visionaries in there, lots of talk about what we were going to do with the company, how great it was going to be, but nobody was getting the work done. I was like, why is nobody working? And I didn't really understand that there's different brains and different things that people want to do. And then as you kind of grow and start building teams, you start to realize the nuances of different people. You can do different personality assessments and different things to kind of understand the tendencies that we have, the things that make us passionate and that make us tick. Because I don't know if as a visionary or as a visionary or entrepreneur, if you've ever talked to somebody about your vision and then they get this glossed over look, it's because they're not what I call a how-minded person. They're not somebody that can connect with somebody's why as a visionary and then figure out how to go and implement that. Most likely that was more of a what person. Just tell me what I need to do and I'm going to go do it. So it's really important as a leader to understand those things. So really what I'm going to talk about today though is really around these 3 important qualities of a leader. And I actually got these 3 qualities from Taoism, and they talked about these 3 qualities. And it's qualities that aren't in leaders today, but I think are probably the most critical and foundational qualities that we need and that people are hungry for. Okay, so the 3 jewels of leadership are compassion, humility, and moderation. It's important to understand these definitions, and honestly, I'll put one of my favorite articles where I learned about this was a LinkedIn article. So I'll actually put that article link in the description. But I'm gonna actually go into the article and actually read the three definitions of compassion, humility, and moderation. Okay, so let's talk about compassion and how that's defined in this article. So in kind of what they call modern leadership parlance, we call it a lot of times emotional intelligence, right, or empathy. And they both are important, and obviously from the world out there, this is a very much missing quality in the leaders that are out there. but both are important, both empathy and emotional intelligence. But compassion goes much deeper than just emotional intelligence. Compassion is a genuine love for humanity. Over the years of being in business, I've just learned to love people. I've learned to love differences in people. As I've hired employees, I cherish the differences and the different opinions, and I love it when people poke holes at what I do. And as a leader, I love that. And so the more you intrinsically just love people, and the good and bad and the ugly of people, like we're all on this journey of life trying to figure it out. And so the more you just get to understand people, the more you realize we all want the same things. We just have different ways of thinking that we need to get there. So compassion reminds leaders that humans are not capital. So I was talking to a potential lead one time and they're like, yeah, we're interested in capital management. I about died when I heard that phrase. And it's a pretty common phrase in the corporate world. It's like, I will never refer to my employees as capital management. I never want to lose sight that they are people and that they're human. And it's interesting because probably 95, even 98% of the employees that we bring in come from pretty toxic work environments or from kind of micromanaged environments. And so there isn't a lot of compassion for employees and kind of even the process it takes to kind of, I call it a rehabilitation process, to go from a micromanaged culture to an empowerment culture where we value their brains, we value their feedback, we value them taking charge. Like those are things that are missing. So in addition, compassion allows leaders to further tear down the wall between business and society. I don't always agree with all the different ways people are trying to do that, but at the end of the day, like I've never, later on in this video, I'm actually going to read a definition of capitalism that I created that I wrote for this book that I wrote during COVID, like everybody else. So I want to kind of talk about how I look at capitalism and our responsibility as leaders in a capitalistic society. Okay, so now let's talk about humility. So in contemporary terms, this is frequently referred to as a servant leader, right? So we always hear servant leadership, and I get so tired of sometimes these cliche words, like obviously with compassion, it's emotional intelligence. So I like to use these more soft, less corporate-y type words, right? Capital management, emotional intelligence, servant leadership, like you start to lose sight of what it actually means. But humility, like you can feel something when you say the word humility. Servant leadership is helpful to understanding like hierarchical leadership. Humility again goes deeper than that. Humility inspires leaders to surround themselves by people smarter and wiser. Humility reminds a leader that they might be wrong. Humility teaches a leader that planning is a fragile endeavor. Humility isn't about thinking small. You still need to think big. It's a reminding yourself of your own smallness. It's the counterweight to arrogance. The more I'm in business and the more that I learn, the more that I realize I don't know a lot. I went to an event, Unlock the Secrets, and there was a quote that was said. I'm trying to remember who said it or even what the exact quote was. But he's like, the best advice I can give you, actually it might be Zach Pensance, the hypnotist. He said, the best advice I could give you is that nobody has it all together. Like we're all trying to figure out life. And if we just realize that and realize that we have different personalities and different strengths coming together, like all of that, the more we can be open to new ideas and changing things and pivoting. And this day and age in business, you have to be willing to pivot. You have to be willing to look for new ways, look for a third way. And this article actually talks about a third way. And it actually talks about it in the next value, which is moderation. So let's go ahead and dig into moderation. Okay, so moderation, this is maybe not what you think of as moderation. Typically with moderation, we think of as moderate or kind of temperance or not overindulging or swinging too far one way or another. But if you go back into history and look at the traditional definition of moderation, and I just love this, I'm just gonna read this verbatim from the article. It talks about it being more musical. So it's about finding harmony between competing dichotomies and paradoxes. It's about blending. By this definition, moderation is an absolute leadership essential because it reduces binary thinking. It encourages leaders to find a third way, and matters of innovation and humanity are almost always found in a third way. So a lot can be learned from this, because if you think about the new way, other videos, again, I'll be talking a lot deeper about innovation, about how, like, now that we have this great resignation happening and this kind of unsettling that's happening, and kind of we're shifting, there's a big shift happening, whether you, I don't know if you see it or not, but there is. And it's making us have to change the way we do business. The way we were doing business before is not going to work. We actually have to be much more innovative and actually care about people more, because guess what? You're probably not going to hire or be able to retain employees if you don't. Okay, so before I go into, there's somebody that actually challenges the third wave that you probably have heard of. And then I also want to go into my definition of capitalism and how kind of redefining maybe how we think of capitalists, and hopefully get people more in line with capitalism isn't necessarily bad. It's just the underlying current and our intent with capitalism needs to change. And so before I do that though, if you want to see more videos like this, or I'm going to be doing more videos around building teams and how to create a good culture and getting people to be able to keep and retain employees, go ahead and like this video, ring the bell so you get the notifications of when those videos drop. Okay, so let's dig into my definition of capitalism. So before I read the definition, the way I kind of came about was during COVID, I actually set off to write a book called Mastery of Business. And I was going to talk around simplicity and innovation and marketing and all those different components to have a successful company. But what's interesting is as I dug in, I wanted to create a beginning part of my book around the why. You know, if you follow Simon Sinek, he always talks about you should know your why. And so I just wanted a little, and I've always been super purposeful and passionate, so I wanted a little blurb in there about it. And so I started researching like mission statements and vision statements and values and kind of what experts were saying. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole. And then it was interesting because there was so much competing definitions of what was foundational and important in business. And, you know, a lot of people talked about business plans and creating business plans and all this thing. And so purpose-driven journey of like why I don't like mission statements and why I think what you do needs to be agile and change, and that's typically what a mission statement says. But we do need to know our purpose statement, like why we are in business, and we needed to know the values, the things that we stand behind, that we're willing to do no matter the consequences. So like the 4 core values in my company are do the right thing, embrace the uncomfortable, build others up, and get it done. Like to me, I will never compromise those. I will rather deal with the consequences, but I'm not going to flip-flop. And most leaders today are flip-flopping, right? They're not really, don't really have a foundational core. And then also you need a vision that people can get behind. You know, people are hungry to get behind somebody else's vision, but people aren't articulating it well and doing that. So people are going and creating a bunch of their own visions, which is creating this very siloed culture. So during all of this is also when all the George Floyd was happening, and it was just making me feel the emotions of everybody. And I was just like, okay, I love entrepreneurship, I love capitalism, I love people, I love our differences. I don't want people to be like me. Like I just tried to pull all these different things together. And I came up with this definition of capitalism, because people will argue and be like, business is only about profits. And so I've taken that same guidance into my company. So here's my definition of capitalism. Ready? Okay, so for this guide, it was kind of a book, but I called it a guide. For this guide to be effective, it is important for us to mutually agree on what money is and is not. For those reading this in America, as we all know, America is a capitalist society. By definition, this means that the economic systems are run by private corporate organizations for profit. I think most of us can agree that programs typically run with less bloat and more innovation when run in the private sector versus government sector, or as capitalism was designed. However, recently there has been much concern with capitalism. In fact, I am filming right now in a studio done by Steve Larson, who is known for being the capitalist pig movement, trying to put down socialists, and I love what he's doing. But the thing is we need to understand, like, how do we define capitalism? Well, here's mine. So capitalism itself is not inherently bad. Again, let's not get hung up on terms. What is the intent? What is getting lost is the hearts within the people and the organizations that are running those private sectors, similar to government sectors. Pride and greed can take over and corrupt the very nature of why organizations exist. So while my definition of capitalism won't show up in Oxford dictionaries or the Oxford languages or Merriam-Webster, let me share with you my version of what capitalism was designed to be. Businesses exist to solve a problem or create a result to help people, right? We've talked about that. The minute the reason for business's existence is strictly for profits, the company is now playing an inwardly selfish, driven game versus an outward, innovative, service-minded operation. In fact, Tony Robbins defines innovation as a person that serves their customer the best. So going back to the definition, so it's an outward, innovative, service-minded operation. So when the results are strictly financially driven, employees and customers' welfare decreases, pride creeps in, and honest ethical decision-making is compromised. I believe capitalism isn't about creating private companies for profit. It should be defined as people creating companies to help people through profits. The more money we have, the more we can give back, right? So let me say that again. I believe that capitalism isn't about creating private companies for profit, but creating companies to help people through profits. If we as people are on this earth to become the best version of ourselves, then organizations exist to improve the human experience through their profits, relationships, process, and technology. This creates culture. Capitalism will be for the people if made up of good companies for the people. Businesses without a heart are dead. If they do not exist to serve others, employees, customers, and strategic partners alike, then corruption will always prevail. So the interesting thing about this is after I wrote this, the Great Resignation happened and all these employees left their companies, and we've created this corporate world where, you know, we got really productive. We were able to show people through the management systems what they need to do, what they need to do when. And so nobody was feeling fulfilled because they didn't have values that they would live behind no matter the consequences. And so people left saying, well, I'm just gonna go do my own thing. I'm gonna go be a freelancer. I'm gonna go and create my own business. And the thing is I literally had somebody just started working for me yesterday that grew 2 companies to $1 million and sold them, but was so hungry for teams that she came and worked for my company. She's got $1.5 million sitting in the bank and she's working for me. People are hungry for community. They're hungry for people working together. But instead what we've created is a silo generation of freelancers, virtual assistants, influencers. Everybody's doing their own thing, and that we have all these tools that people are constantly making to make us productive. But if we're having to implement all the productive tools all on our own as single people, like that's a lot of extra work. And so I'm on a mission, as you can see, I'm super passionate about this, to bring community back together, bring people back together of understanding that we can still have very successful, profitable companies and have a lot of money. But that's going to allow us to really influence people's lives. My vision for my company is to elevate the human experience through business. So everything we do is tied to the human experience. When we implement technology, again, it's about the human experience. Does it serve people? So I'm actually doing a clinic on what I call the impact equation. And I call it the impact equation because I read a lot of business books, and a lot of business books will take it to success, but they don't take it up one more level, which is what I call significance. And when you get up to significance, that's when you're able to make a really big impact on the world. And I believe I have the secret sauce to get you there. So in this free clinic, if you go to stressfreesupergrowth.com, I actually will go into the different phases of business, what you should be hyper-focused on in those different phases. So again, I'd love to have you join me. If you go to stressfreesupergrowth.com, I will see you there.